Being groomed by Methodjosh at 14, my story. Hello everyone. I cannot believe I'm doing this, but the recent posts have given me enough courage to fight back for what I know is right. This will be all over the place, for which I apologize, but I am very emotional right now. I'd like to start off by saying that I am currently 16 years old, turning 17 later this year. I first came across Josh through his stream. My WoW friends loved watching him and making fun of his persona, and I decided to tag along. Not too long after, I found out about his Discord and decided to join. What's the worst that could happen? It's not like he'd notice me, some random 14-year-old, right? I was often in his chat, talking to people and having a laugh. It wasn't until a little bit later that I decided to message him, striking some casual WoW talk. To my surprise, he responded, and I was the happiest I had ever been. I remember that day, I was wearing a hoodie and a pair of jeans, and I remember putting my phone in that little pocket on the front of it, feeling like I had achieved something great. Little did I know, that was the beginning of my nightmare. During that time, I turned 15. He asked to see me, to prove I'm a girl and not some random fanboy, so young me sent him my Instagram. He complimented me, made me feel so pretty. I was starved for any kind of attention, and I was receiving it from him. We had one normal conversation until it turned sexual. And no, I didn't hide my age. Very quickly into the conversation I let him know I was underage, to which he replied with, "Oh, I'm sorry kitty, but I can't speak to you if that's the case. I don't want any trouble." I figured, that was expected, and as I was about to send that message, he sent me his snap, Atacamite. I thought to myself, WTF. But my heart was happy. Why wouldn't it be? I was getting recognized by a person I idolized. Someone I looked up to. Soon after, everything began. He started being flirtatious with me, openly suggesting threesomes, asking me to send photos, etc. You might be thinking, please tell me you didn't do that, but I did. Yes, I was young, naive, and stupid, and to an extent I still am. Except I'm scarred. I started sending him pictures and I received some of him back. And not of his face. Somewhere around that time, I started having panic attacks. I started shaking uncontrollably, dissociating from my body and losing sense of where I was or what was happening. I was so afraid of disappointing my idol, I was ready to do just about anything. And it hurt. The gods know it did. This kept going for a while, until an article came out later in January 2019. He panic called me, yelling at me if I had reported him and making me promise to always deny, no matter what. He'd go on to say the exact same things on Snapchat. After that, he'd ghost me for weeks at a time. Call me every now and then so he would get off, then would make up some BS excuse about how he had to go do something else and leave me there. Just like that. We stopped talking around May of 2019. Until he reached out to me in February of this year, 2020. He wanted me to be his third in his relationship with girlfriend, Ali. And no, I'm not going to keep her name hidden, because she was aware of the fact I'm underage. She's guilty, too, and I'll be damned if I let her get away with this. Her name is @introverb on Instagram. I played along, I tried to get him to trust me so I'd get more screenshots, more messages. It was going okay, until my panic attacks came back. My PTSD symptoms, my dissociation, all of it. I couldn't do it. I could do it for only a few days before I had to block him. I'm going to therapy because of him. I'm seeing therapists and receiving help because what he did was traumatize me to the point that I could trust no one. That I felt replaceable. My self-esteem was crushed. I'm not okay, and that's okay, because I'm on my journey of self-recovery. I refuse to be a victim and I refuse to stay silent. I've done that long enough. Shame on the people who hid this about Josh back in January 2019. Shame on you. Shame on everyone who made excuses for him. Shame on everyone who tried to keep things silent. You're the worst type of people. People in Method knew. Not all of them, that's for sure, but some did. To the people who said I was lying when I shared with them, to the people who said it was his persona and that I should stop being dramatic, how does it feel to be slapped with the cold truth? I'm so sorry. To everyone. To all the other dozens of girls, who met the same vile person and were trapped in similar situations. I'm sorry that I took so long to speak up. I'm sorry that I wasn't brave enough. I wish I could protect all of you. I'm scared, I really am. I'm afraid he'll reach out to me, or that he'll hurt me, but I know I'm on the right side of things right now. I know so many people have my back, and that I've got theirs. Stay strong. Justice will be served. Mittens. Methodjosh. Hi, I have seen posts from both my old guild Discord and multiple class Discords I am in about Methodjosh. Sorry if I can't articulate this properly. I was 13 when he DM'd me. He knew me from a public WoW Discord which I was in since 2016. He also knew one of my friends from my old guild. I personally know only of him harassing myself, my guildies, their friends, and other people from tank chat. I don't want to speak on their behalf, but I have seen him acting disrespectfully / harassing them directly. I was active in tank chat since 2016, when the main chat was public immediately / before it became opt-in, and during winter break / New Year's people were VCing. He joined the VC and then DM'd me, probably because I sounded like a girl, with the generic "hey do you wanna edit" type of messages. Everyone in tank chat knows my age, and when he was told, by myself and others, that I was 13 at the time, he backed off for a bit, but ultimately continued to DM me. I felt scared after he said he'd kill his dog, which I honestly believed at the time, and that when I accepted his first private call. He again asked my age and I answered again, 13, and he said he didn't believe me. I left and rejoined the VC in tank chat and he followed. He sometimes DM'd me the month after, but started talking as a regular in tank chat, and we made a joke out of him. Another girl he harassed that I knew of was a healer in my guild during the end of Legion. They DM'd and he was also in their private Discord and was pretty rude to the other members. One of their friends was called the N-word multiple times in DMS by him, and he insulted a lot of people in there. I left the Discord when I blocked him, so I don't have as many screenshots. Their names are blocked out in different colors in the SSS below. It's definitely more than social awkwardness, it's an active choice to call a girl a whore or slut or say the N-word. Asking me to VC repeatedly, calling me / all women evil, or worse, and also being possessive for no reason. He's asked my age multiple times and each time I said how old I was and he continued to DM me until I blocked him. This is leaking DMS and private Discords, but come on, you're using your main account that's connected to your Twitch account and a brand. You said suspicious things in public Discords as well, but people probably thought you were joking / memeing and wanted attention. One of my friends tried to make a Google Doc compiled with similar screenshots and submitted a report to Discord a few years ago in 2018, I was 14 at the time, and nothing came of it. I was happy when my friend said that he finally banned off Twitch, but I just try to ignore things like this in general and not think about it. The general uncaringness of people has made me hide my emotions and pretend to not care as well, before anyone calls me a stupid bitch or e-girl. I just ignore it. I am 16 now. A lot of my friends ask me to make a statement. The severity of his actions against me weren't as bad as other voices that have spoken up, but I would still like to post this. I'm ready. TW, rape. To the victims of sexual abuse / harassment / assault that have spoken up, Words can't undo what's been done to you, but for what it's worth, I'm sorry. You are so brave, so much braver than I am. Reading your accounts has been devastating, but at the same time, it has made me feel so much less alone. So thank you. However, I am one of the lucky ones. My abuser was deplatformed. No, I did not deplatform him. I do not have the power to do that alone, which gave me the space to heal somewhat that many other people have not had. I know what it's like to feel like you don't have control of your own body, that it doesn't belong to you. I know what it's like to feel dirty. I know the feeling of the sleepless nights, the slow journey of convincing yourself that you'll be back to your old self again soon. I know what it feels like to feel like a part of you has died. I tell myself that I was fun and free and sexy before, and now I feel like a used empty shell. I also know what it feels like to try and accept what happened to you. It's been a long time for me, and I still struggle to accept it. I knew what happened to me was wrong, and I went to the police a couple days after it happened because I knew I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I saw it happen to another girl. I went to the police thinking I was telling them my account of a sexual assault. The police officer told me that what happened was rape. I'll never forget how harsh that word sounded when he said it. Many survivors don't realize until long afterwards the gravity of what happened to them. Before I was assaulted, I had an online personality that was very open. I talked about the experiences I'd had often, the good and the bad. I shared personal stories that people found shocking. I wasn't ashamed to talk about myself in that way. I was gaining traction in the Twitch world at this time. After I was assaulted, that version of me died. I took a long break from streaming and retreated from all social circles on Twitch. This has taken a long time for me to accept, that I will never be that person again. I idolized that version of myself. It made healing from the trauma very difficult because I was always comparing myself to the old me. I remember a few days afterwards, I was standing in the bathroom naked about to shower. I was looking at my body in the mirror, so ashamed and disgusted, I cut off 6 inches of my hair. I wish I could have that carefree Louise back. I mourn the days and nights I've wasted thinking about what happened to me. I first met him at TwitchCon. I thought he was funny and a bit socially unaware but in a sweet sort of way. After TwitchCon he reached out to me a few times to get my attention. We had flirted a bit but never exchanged anything or sexted. One night he was desperate to see me. It was last year, the day after I finished my uni exams for the year. He drove up in his car and arrived in the middle of the night. I remember thinking it was romantic. He drove me an hour out of the city up to a lake where we watched the sun rise. He seemed to take joy in driving 130 miles per hour on the motorway even after I screamed for him to stop. I thought he was just being reckless and romantic again. He stayed over that night. We slept on the sofa together. We spooned, and I liked that. I wanted to spoon and it was sweet. He tried to move his hands elsewhere and initiate something further that night. I simply moved them away and told him I didn't want to do anything like that, and he said that was fine and stopped. He said the weirdest thing that night that stuck with me for ages. I asked him what the weirdest thing he'd ever jerked off to was. He said he loves imagining committing mass genocide, lining up one race against a wall and just shooting them all. It didn't seem like the appropriate time for a joke, but I laughed anyway. I really thought he was joking. Maybe he was. I don't know. He joked about a lot of things and I never knew if he really meant them. A few weeks go by and after this night he doesn't talk to me much at all, is very distant. I get the impression he's not interested in me, so I dropped it. However, one night we did go on a call. I wanted to talk to him about meeting up for a drink with a mutual friend of ours. I had not spoken to him a while, so I was nervous to call. He seems like he's listening to me at first, then asks me to turn on the camera. I realize he has his penis out and he's been masturbating the whole time. I wanted to talk to him about the meeting up for drinks, but he had a different agenda. He asks me to turn around. I hadn't showered in a couple days and was wearing pajamas and no makeup. He said all he needs is 30 seconds and then he'll talk about whatever I want. I stupidly complied. I turned around, fully clothed, and waited till he finished himself off. It was so strange to me because he jumped from something quite innocent to this straight away. I started talking about what I originally called about and he said he had to go and ended the call. I was so fucking stupid. I thought he was embarrassed and that he didn't have a good time and was ashamed. I didn't want him to feel embarrassed. I thought he was just some socially unaware gamer. I messaged him afterwards saying that I enjoyed the call and what happened in the call, but that I didn't want anything like that with him ever again. I realized at this point that he didn't like me, just wanted to mess me about. I thought he was just a bit of a player too and I didn't want anything to do with that, but I told him I still wanted to be friends. He replied calling me a faggot. Anyway, a month goes by again where we don't really talk much and my exams have just finished but my internet died for a week. He knows I've had no internet for a week, and invites me over to stream with him at his place and says he'll pay for my ticket and we'll do fun stream stuff together. He invites me to a call with him while he is streaming and asks me to go see him. Multiple times in this call I made it clear I would not be having sex with him. I asked him while he was live, I don't have to sleep with you, do I? He laughs and says of course not. He also makes a joke saying he would never even dream of trying anything on me because his biggest fear is getting #Methodjosh. This made me feel pretty safe. I'd met him before and thought I knew what he was like. I did not know him at all. If there's anyone young and impressionable reading this, please don't ever make the same mistake I did. I thought I was tough, I thought I could handle myself, I thought that if anything happened to me I could always just leave, but that's not what it's like at all. You just don't know what your reaction is going to be to this sort of thing until it happens to you. Please don't be stupid like I was. I turn up to his city and he ignores my messages. He's laughing on stream about how he's not going to meet me at the station. Whatever, I thought it was just an act for his stream, playing the misogynist or something. I put up with it because I wanted to make it on Twitch back then. I put up with a lot. I went along with the stream. For those of you who watched the stream, yeah, he was a huge dick. I know. I thought it was all an act and that once the stream ended he would be nice and the version of him that I thought I knew. The verbal abuse didn't end. He was nitpicky, mean, comparing me to other streamers. He was dragging other streamers down too, calling all the Raj girls whores. However, I couldn't leave at this point. My phone was fucked, it was super late too. I had gone out in the rain to his local shop to buy him new bed sheets because he promised me he would have a fresh bed for me and he would sleep on the floor. When I got there the bed was disgusting. I wanted to do it up nicely for him. I tried taking a picture of the bed before so that I could do a before/after sort of thing. He said under no circumstances am I allowed to take any pictures in his flat. Anyway, I didn't have a raincoat so my phone suffered water damage from the walk in the rain. While he was streaming I was quite aware that the chat were the only access I had at the time to the outside world. At the end of the stream I remember saying that I didn't want him to end the stream because chat were all I had. I said it as a joke obviously but didn't know how much later on that would be true. The stream ends and he's keen to go to bed. He hops straight into the bed with me and to be honest I didn't actually mind this. I thought we might spoon and I was okay with that. I was a huge fan of spooning. He shares things with me at this point I think to try and push my buttons. Tells me that if I stopped eating so that I had a borderline anorexic body, that I would make a much better spoon. He tells me dark things about how he's always wanted to kill a woman, just to see what it's like. That he wants to see the panic and fear in her eyes fade. Again, I brushed it off as a joke, I thought he was just trying to freak me out. He tells me that the next girl is coming in a month. Another Twitch streamer. He doesn't tell me who it is. I was aware that the month before me he had at Introverb around. He drove 130 miles per hour down a country lane with her in the car and they had crashed. A near miss and she could have fucking died. He seemed to find this part hilarious. I remember when I saw that picture of his smashed up car, I was so relieved that it wasn't me in that car. He has wandering hands while we spoon. Asks me to go over again why I won't sleep with him. I explained to him again that I had feelings for him and I knew he didn't like me like that, and I only want to sleep with people that I'm sure are going to be kind to me. I was not getting that feeling from him at all. This goes on for ages. He talks and then asks me why I won't sleep with him. The next part is going to be hard for me to write, and to be honest I don't want to go into that much detail. He keeps grabbing more parts of me and prodding, trying to find a way in, trying to get me to give in. He asks me if I like being choked. I didn't say anything at all and he said he can always get a girl to enjoy choking, as he puts his hands around my neck. I am pushing him away and turning around and facing away from him and he is trying to pull my pants down. Eventually, he pushed me over and climbed on top of me and forced his way in. This was the only part of the night that I screamed no. After a few minutes he pulls out and ejaculates onto my pajama top. He rolls over, I am crying and tell him I need a shower. I'll never forget that feeling of shame. Right after it happened the first time I ran to your bathroom and sat on your shower floor and cried. You knew what you had done, but you carried on anyway later that night. I came back into the room and you asked if I had been crying. That didn't stop you from continuing to use my body later that night. I didn't want anyone to know. In my mind I was weak and pathetic. I didn't want anyone to know that I had let this happen to me. I told people that you asked me to sleep with you and I said no and it ended there. Why didn't I pull a knife on him? Why didn't I try to leave straight away? Why did I wait until the day after? That was just the first time. Later on that night you forced your way into my ass. You somehow in your mind thought that because I had told stories online about anal sex, that you had a right to that part of my body. There were multiple other times that night that I woke up to the sound of you masturbating in the bed next to me. You begged and pleaded for me to give you relief. I had little fight in me left. I lay next to you looking at the ceiling and cupped your balls as you relieved yourself. After you finished I told you I hated you and you laughed. That was the longest night of my life. He played League for the rest of the night, stopping occasionally to disturb me from my sleep. He came over and held a pillow over my face so I couldn't breathe as a joke until I kicked and screamed. Another time he came over and pulled up my t-shirt over my head, exposing me. That stream the next day it was obvious something had happened between us, but I didn't want people to know. I didn't want people to think that I had slept with him, that I was a slut and sleeping my way to the top. He joked about other women again, and shouted at me for the way I was eating chocolate, joked about how I was trash and how he doesn't want to drink out of the same water bottle I drank out of because that's disgusting. I don't know if anyone noticed, but on that stream I reached my breaking point. There's a moment where I look down quiet, and walk up and go to the bathroom because I've started crying. He knows I'm crying. He carries on streaming. His chats start to pick up on something being wrong and tell him to make sure I'm okay. I'm packing my bags to leave. I get my stuff and as I'm about to leave he comes over because chat is pressuring him. He shakes my hand and tells me he's sorry, and that he's just fucked in the head. I left and got the train to a nearby city to stay with a friend. As I'm on the train he sends me $100 for the train tickets. I felt like a whore. I tell my friend what happened. I'm gradually coming to terms with what happened to me. I try and do a normal stream a couple days after, and brush past it. People keep coming into my chat and talking about him and it just sets me off crying. I became an ethot on the internet that was just crying for attention. A day or so later I decide that I need to report it to the police. I couldn't stop thinking about how he said the next girl was coming in a month. I just knew I wouldn't be able to live with myself, if I saw it happen to another girl. After that night I was no longer welcome in Twitch circles I had been in before. Some people stopped talking to me altogether. I was fighting the memories of the trauma I had, and I was also fighting with my own social anxiety, and the belief that everyone thought I was a liar. I had only told my close friends what had happened. I went to TwitchCon thinking that everyone hated me. I went to TwitchCon hoping to feel like my old self again, but I was told that even the people I was supposed to be sharing an Airbnb with were concerned about sharing with me. I assumed this was because they thought I was a liar. My own paranoia amplified all the interactions I had at this event. I realize now that people probably didn't know, or didn't even know who I was. But in my head I felt the shame, that they were looking at me like I was dirty. I didn't know what was worse at this time, that people thought I was a liar and were disgusted, or that people believed me and were disgusted with how pathetic I was. And then months later I met a boy I liked. After having spent a few days with him, I wanted to kiss him. He leaned over to kiss me and I had a panic attack, couldn't stop crying. I was pathetic and weak again. I mourned the death of who I was before. I felt isolated and alone. Twitch was everything to me, and it soon became a place that only brought me pain. I wasn't happy. I hadn't masturbated in months, I couldn't even look at myself naked. I couldn't even kiss a boy that I liked without the trauma resurfacing. I gained a lot of weight. My university degree brought me no joy. I had a bed that I'd also not slept in for months. I wanted to die. I would think about it every day. I kept telling myself to wait and see how you feel tomorrow. This would then turn into wait and see how you feel next week and so on. I slept on my sofa with a knife under my pillow. It's been a year and I still sleep with a knife by my side. The police have reassured me that there are no signs that he would ever come to my flat, but it helps me sleep anyway. My therapist has worked with me every week, to help me through working on not blaming myself for what happened to me. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting there. He reached out to me recently, saying that I need to come clean about being a liar, that he wants to kill himself and he's terrified every time someone knocks on his door. He told me he doesn't want to ruin my life over this, he just wants me to come clean. I still don't know to this day if he truly knows that what he did was wrong. I've heard so many different versions of events from other people that he's told, from nothing happened at all to everything was consensual. The police investigation was dropped. They couldn't prove that it happened, nor could they prove that it didn't happen. I was advised that this is what happens with most rape and sexual assault cases in the UK, they are so hard to prove unless you basically have it on video or a witness. Yes, the case being dropped was disappointing, but I did feel relief that it was dropped. I didn't want to relive the experience in court. To fight what's going on in your head, and also fight to prove that what happened to you did happen, it's exhausting. If you made it this far, thank you. I spent so many hours of my life, every day, thinking about this, about when and if I would ever share my story one day. I hope posting this will be the final piece I need to be able to move on, and get back to my old self. I feel like for the past year I've been hiding this terrible secret, carrying this weight with me. I just want to move on and let go. Please leave me alone. Methodjosh. For the sake of anonymity, I created a new Twitter in order to get my story out. When I was 17 and playing World of Warcraft, a few of my guild mates were talking about a funny streamer I hadn't heard of. His Twitch name was Methodjosh. I had seen a few clips of his and thought to myself there is no way this could have been real, so I of course, went to the source itself. I did not expect much when joining Josh's Discord and when I decided to message him. I can't remember exactly what happened, because I cannot go look back at the messages at the moment as he has deleted his Discord, although I did save some from a long time ago. I do, however, remember telling him explicitly about my age and him saying I don't talk to underage yet continuing to talk to me. You may say it's my fault for continuing to talk to him, but it was not, and I know that now. This is a textbook abuse of power. He was the adult. He should have known to cut contact with me immediately. I was just a fan who looked up to him and wanted attention and validation, and he knew that and used it to his advantage. What I am most mad about, however, is Method knowing long ago of his abuse and pedophilic tendencies. It was a few months after I had turned 18 I had realized and come to terms with the abuse Josh had put me through. I felt powerless and used. I began talking to another woman in his Discord who reached out to me asking why I eventually left his Discord, and we became friends, although we were cautious of one another at first as Josh would manipulate every girl he talked to into thinking they were so incredibly special to him, and shared our stories of his abuse with each other 1 year ago. We together found the courage to create an email together outlining the awful things Josh would do in his Discord and in DMS and sent it to Dari, a general manager for the Method organization. The way Method handled the situation was incredibly unprofessional, essentially saying go to the police and we will pursue further action. I felt powerless, yet again. Not only by my abuser, but by a huge organization that was hiding him. I finally found the courage again to talk to a reporter, and maybe just hope that an article would at least get the word out. Yes, I am Caroline. It was then the article was published and played off as a joke to many people in his community, and even his own organization. Many people swept it under the rug stating there wasn't enough proof and that I was lying about what he did to me. Along with this, Method essentially would have discounted my proof and minimized it to images can be doctored and recollections of the truth twisted. He continued streaming like nothing ever happened, and continued raiding with them as well. Method was complicit and knew over a whole year ago about this. Had Method acted long ago, when they were informed, they may have saved lots of women from his abuse by denying him a platform. It is not only Josh who hurt me and others who were abused, it is also everyone who were complicit to his behavior and chose to ignore it because it did not benefit them. I encourage every company to, instead of speaking through hollow words and performative Twitter statements, show us through actions. I also encourage every company considering working with this organization to really evaluate if Method reflects what values you represent after having harbored this pedophile for so long. This is how you silence victims. You make them feel alone and small and powerless. Method wants to preach their solidarity, but what changed from a year ago? A change of heart, or being forced to be held accountable. My heart goes out to every person Josh has hurt or anyone who has faced online abuse, whether you told your story or have yet to find the courage to talk about your experiences. You are not alone. My experience with Methodjosh. Recently, so many people have been speaking up about sexual abuse and harassment they have experienced from streamers and people with a big social media platform. It's very difficult to share these things as you are always facing the fear of being called a liar, being asked where the evidence is, and generally not being treated with any empathy or respect. I will share my experience of grooming and general emotional abuse from the streamer Methodjosh, who was actually permanently banned from Twitch as a result of issues arising with another woman. This happened 3 years ago now, around June 2017, I am 19. This means Josh was actively speaking to and encouraging sexual activities, online only, with a 16-year-old girl. While the age of consent in the UK is 16, any revealing pictures of someone under the age of 18 is considered child porn and is strictly illegal. To begin with though, I first came into contact with Josh through a public Discord for disciplined priests in WoW after I had posted about killing a difficult boss with my very small guild. Even then, a few months before he started streaming, he was notorious for paying particular attention to women and often DMing a woman on Discord once he had figured out they were female. It was of course 3 years ago, so I can't remember exactly how our initial conversation went, however I do have these screenshots from one of our first conversations. It could be considered a light-hearted joke to someone, whilst in bad taste, not necessarily harmful in any way, but this conversation set the tone for later stages of our interactions. Even if you assume it's a joke, could you even consider saying these things to a girl you know is 16 years old? It's utterly disgusting, and reading through these images make me feel sick. Over the first couple of weeks after having spoken to Josh, he regularly messaged me, usually about WoW-related topics or raiding, as he was progressing Mythic KJ at the time, something that actually made him fairly popular from playing Disc Priest. However, whilst my naive, young self was actually happy at receiving some attention from someone for once after not experiencing anything like it before, I realize now that Josh effectively groomed me and abused my naivete and depression for his own sexual satisfaction. This may sound extremely far-fetched as it was only through online contact. However, I struggle to see a point of view where encouraging sexual pictures and videos from a 16-year-old girl isn't some form of abuse through lack of experience, knowledge, and self-worth. It was about a month or two after he first messaged me when things gradually became more sexual. An example here: one of the first snaps he sent to me after I got his Snapchat a couple of weeks after having spoken to him. He started to talk more and more about topics of a sexual nature, even at one point saying something along the lines of "I will drive down to your house," and hinting at sexual connotations. I cannot remember exactly how these conversations went, and I don't want to create sentences he did not type. However, it is important that you understand these types of interactions did happen. When Josh started actually asking for pictures of revealing types, unfortunately I obliged. It is extremely embarrassing to think and talk about, as I regret it immensely, but looking back now I can understand that my 16-year-old self was depressed, had lacked any type of attention from crushes or interests of any sort, and was shocked and amazed at the fact that someone from Method, which honestly felt almost like getting attention from a small celeb of sorts, took an interest in me. When these interactions begun, he would extremely rarely message me about anything that wasn't beneficial to him of any sorts, meaning he pretty much dropped all contact with me besides when he wanted something sexual. This was horrible for my 16-year-old self. I had terrible anxiety issues, and this only further worsened them. I still am affected by these anxiety issues to this day, and it had greatly affected some friendships I have with people. The anxiety of wanting Josh, the man from Method that had took interest in irrelevant little me, to just message me and be my friend was excruciating. He would go 2 weeks and longer of not contacting me whatsoever, even when I begged him to say something to me, as I was scared and upset that this celeb-like person suddenly stopped interacting with me. The only times he did randomly message me were usually on Snapchat after I had probably snapped him something relatively normal, such as a sunset on my way home from school. It was like he suddenly remembered I existed and immediately asked me to send revealing pictures. This carried on until early the next year. Here is just one example of when I was speaking to my friend about it, an extremely trusted friend who I won't be exposing. We spoke about this in a light-hearted manner, and I noticed Josh was typing. Possibly the worst time was when Josh wished to call me after a meeting for Mythic Argus. It was late and I was falling asleep, but I stayed awake to call him. I did know that the call was going to be sexual before I accepted it, as Josh had stated what mood he was in an hour or so beforehand during the meeting. Again, I regret being so naive and going through with these things, however I do forgive myself for not knowing any better. Here is a summary of what happened during the call. The deleted user is my previous Discord account. As well as this, I specifically remember him saying he wanted to breed with me and milk me. I was so anxious during this call that whilst he asked for pictures and any recording of myself, I was trembling so incredibly hard. I have never felt so anxious and nervous in any situation as I did then, and I feel so sorry for myself for actually going through with it. As incredibly embarrassing as this is to share, I need to put out there the shit Methodjosh did with a 16-year-old girl. Not only did he take advantage of my depression, age, and experience, it so happens that my mother unexpectedly passed away during this time, September 2017, which hit incredibly hard. It can be easy to assume from this that any attention or intimacy with someone could become quite obsessive during a raw and upsetting emotional conflict. He knew about my mother's passing and yet still initiated these acts, even around a week after she died if I do recall correctly. I find it utterly disgusting and vile that Josh is still able to represent the community-loving Method brand. What kind of perception of the company are you hoping to achieve when you allow people like Josh to remain with Method, stream for Method, and play and most likely receive money for competing in the world first race? There is no world where any company allows this, especially after there have been other women reporting harassment from Josh and yet no punishment at all. Absolutely disgusting, and I hate the fact that it might even take this post for anything to happen at all, which even now I doubt me sharing this will make any difference. Wake up and take action that should have been taken a long time ago. This is entirely unrelated to the Kotaku allegations and is my personal experience.